John, a seasoned bricklayer in his mid-40s, trudges home after an exhausting day at the construction site. His calloused hands and aching back are constant reminders of his 25 years in the trade. As he navigates through the bustling city streets, the weight of financial struggles and unfulfilled dreams weighs heavily on his mind. On this particular evening, something compels John to stop at Lou's corner store, a place he usually hurries past. The flickering neon lottery sign catches his eye. Against his better judgment and years of frugal habits, John decides to purchase a ticket. "What's $5?" he mutters to himself, trying to justify this rare splurge. At home, John microwaves a lonely TV dinner. His wife Sarah, a dedicated nurse, is pulling another night shift at the city hospital. Their modest apartment feels emptier than usual. As he mindlessly channel surfs, he stumbles upon the live lottery drawing. Initially, John barely pays attention, absent-mindedly munching on his bland meal. Suddenly, a number matches, then another, and another. John's heart begins to race. By the final number, he's on his feet, ticket clutched tightly in his trembling hand. Unbelievably, all numbers match. John has just won the $10 million jackpot. The room spins. John collapses back into his worn recliner, breath coming in short gasps. His mind explodes with possibilities. A new house, traveling the world, finally starting that construction company he's always dreamed of. For a moment, pure elation washes over him. But as the initial shock subsides, a darker thought creeps in. John and Sarah's marriage has been strained lately, with constant arguments about money and Sarah's desire for children. A wish John has been reluctant to fulfill given their financial situation. A voice in his head whispers, "What if you didn't have to share?" John's moral compass battles with newfound greed. He imagines a life of luxury, free from the burden of manual labor. But could he really deceive Sarah, his partner of 20 years? As the night wears on, John paces the apartment, the winning ticket burning a hole in his pocket. By dawn, he's made a decision that will set in motion a chain of events he could never have anticipated. The bricklayer who left for work that morning is not the same man who now watches the sun rise over the city skyline. The weight of $10 million and a life-altering secret resting squarely on his shoulders. As the reality of his $10 million windfall sinks in, John's mind races with possibilities. For the first time in years, he calls in sick to work, claiming a severe bout of flu. In truth, he spends the day in a frenzy of secret planning and daydreaming. John's first thought is financial freedom. He imagines paying off all debts, the mortgage on their small apartment, the lingering credit card bills, and the loan on his beat-up truck. The idea of being debt-free after years of living paycheck to paycheck is intoxicating. Next, he sketches out plans for a luxurious dream home, complete with a state-of-the-art kitchen for Sarah, though he's not sure she'll ever see it, and a private workshop where he can pursue his woodworking hobby. The thought of having a space truly his own fills him with excitement. Travel aspirations soon follow. John creates a mental bucket list of destinations: the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Great Wall of China, the beaches of Bali. He imagines himself sipping cocktails on exotic shores, far from the dust and grime of construction sites. The world seems to open up before him, full of possibilities he never dared to consider before. With financial security assured, John contemplates leaving his physically demanding job. He considers starting his own construction company, envisioning himself in a suit, overseeing projects rather than laying bricks. The idea of being his own boss, of creating something lasting, appeals to him deeply. Surprisingly, John finds himself thinking about giving back. He researches local charities, particularly those supporting underprivileged youth interested in trade professions. The thought of helping others achieve their dreams gives him a sense of purpose he didn't expect. Determined to make his windfall grow, John spends hours watching financial news channels and researching investment strategies. He dreams of turning his millions into even greater wealth, securing not just his future, but potentially generations to come. John's imagination runs wild with luxury purchases: a sports car, a boat, designer clothes, and the latest gadgets. He creates a mental wish list of items he's always wanted but could never afford, reveling in the idea that they're now within reach. With the prospect of an easier life ahead, John considers hiring a personal trainer and nutritionist, to get in the best shape of his life. He imagines himself healthy, fit, and energetic, ready to enjoy his newfound wealth to the fullest. Long harboring a secret desire to further his education, John looks into business management courses at the local community college. The idea of expanding his knowledge and skills, of challenging himself intellectually, is both exciting and intimidating. Despite his decision to keep the winnings secret, John can't help but reconsider his stance on having children. With financial worries out of the way, the idea of fatherhood becomes more appealing. He pictures a future with a family, something he had previously thought was out of reach. As night falls, John is exhausted but exhilarated. The weight of his secret is heavy, but the promise of a new life propels him forward. Little does he know that his elaborate plans are about to collide with the harsh reality of deception and its unforeseen consequences. The path ahead is far more complex and challenging than he could ever imagine, and the true cost of his windfall is yet to be revealed. As the initial euphoria of winning the lottery begins to settle, John finds himself grappling with a monumental decision. The weight of the secret presses down on him, making each breath feel heavy and labored. He paces the small living room of their apartment, the winning ticket clutched tightly in his hand, as if it might disappear if he loosens his grip. John's mind races, replaying years of his marriage to Sarah. He remembers the good times, their budget honeymoon to the coast, the pride they felt when they scraped together enough for a down payment on this modest apartment. But the memories are tainted by the recent struggles. The constant arguments about money, the stress of living paycheck to paycheck, and Sarah's growing resentment towards his reluctance to start a family due to their financial instability. He thinks about Sarah, working another long night shift at the hospital. He imagines her exhausted face, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her shoulders slump after a grueling day of caring for others. A pang of guilt strikes him as he considers keeping this life-changing secret from her. But then, almost unbidden, other thoughts creep in. He recalls the times Sarah has complained about his long hours at the construction site, the way she wrinkles her nose at his dirt-stained clothes. He remembers her not-so-subtle hints about him finding a better job, one that doesn't involve manual labor. The resentment he's buried for years begins to surface. John's mind wanders to their different upbringings. Sarah, from a middle-class family, had always had certain expectations about life. Expectations that John, with his working-class background, had struggled to meet. He thinks about how this money could finally allow him to be the provider he's always wanted to be, to give Sarah the life she deserves. But a small, dark part of him whispers that maybe he deserves to enjoy this windfall alone, at least for a while. As dawn breaks, John makes his decision. He'll keep the winnings a secret, at least for now. He tells himself it's temporary, that he'll reveal everything once he's figured out how to handle the money responsibly. He convinces himself that he's protecting Sarah from the stress and complications that sudden wealth might bring. With trembling hands, John hides the winning ticket in an old toolbox in the back of their closet. As he does so, he feels the first brick in the wall of deception being laid. He doesn't realize it yet, but this decision will set in motion a series of events that will test his marriage, his integrity, and his very identity. As he prepares for another day at the construction site, John practices his poker face in the bathroom mirror. He rehearses answers to potential questions, concocting elaborate explanations for any changes in his behavior. The man staring back at him in the mirror looks the same, but John knows that everything has changed. With a deep breath, John steps out of the apartment, leaving behind the hidden ticket and stepping into a new life, built on a foundation of lies. The weight of his secret is heavy, but the allure of a new life, a life of wealth and opportunity, propels him forward into the unknown. As days turn into weeks, John finds himself caught in an ever-expanding web of lies. The initial thrill of his secret lottery win has given way to a constant state of anxiety as he struggles to explain his sudden influx of wealth to Sarah and those around him. His first major purchase is a brand new pickup truck to replace his old, rusted vehicle. When Sarah's eyes widen at the sight of the gleaming truck in their driveway, John quickly spins a tale about getting an incredible deal at a police auction. He meticulously crafts the story, peppering it with just enough detail to make it believable without being suspicious. Sarah seems skeptical, but doesn't press the issue, much to John's relief. Next comes the challenge of explaining their sudden ability to pay off debts. John fabricates a story about inheriting a small sum from a distant uncle he'd never mentioned before. He goes as far as to create a fake obituary and even considers hiring an actor to pose as a lawyer delivering the news. The lengths he goes to maintain this charade leave him feeling both clever and deeply ashamed. As John starts to indulge in more luxuries, his explanations become increasingly elaborate. A weekend getaway to a high-end resort is justified as a prize won in a radio contest he claims to have entered months ago. New designer clothes are explained away as incredible finds at a charity shop, complete with fabricated stories about each lucky discovery. To account for his newfound interest in investments and financial news, John tells Sarah he's been taking free online courses in personal finance. He actually does start watching tutorials and reading financial blogs, not just to maintain his cover, but also to figure out how to manage his hidden millions. One of his most daring schemes involves setting up a fake side business. John tells Sarah he's been moonlighting as a handyman, taking on small jobs for cash. He goes to great lengths to make this lie believable, creating business cards, setting up a burner phone for client calls, and even dirty up his work clothes on days he claims to have jobs. As his schemes grow more complex, John finds himself struggling to keep track of his lies. He starts keeping a secret notebook hidden alongside the lottery ticket, detailing each fabrication to ensure his stories remain consistent. The irony of meticulously documenting his dishonesty is not lost on him. The stress of maintaining these elaborate deceptions begins to take its toll. John becomes jumpy and paranoid, constantly fearing that one wrong word or a slip in his story will bring his carefully constructed house of cards tumbling down. He starts to withdraw from friends and family, worried that prolonged interactions might expose his lies. Despite the mounting pressure, a part of John revels in the challenge. He finds a perverse sense of pride in his ability to craft these intricate deceptions, to live this double life. But in quiet moments, usually late at night when Sarah is asleep beside him, the weight of his actions crashes down on him. He wonders how long he can keep up this charade, and more importantly, if there will be anything left of his real self when it's all over. As John sinks deeper into his world of lies, he fails to notice the growing distance between him and Sarah. His elaborate schemes to explain their sudden wealth are slowly eroding the foundation of trust their relationship was built on. Little does he know, his web of deception is about to face its greatest test, one that will push his marriage, his morality, and his sanity to the breaking point. As weeks turn into months, the strain of John's secret begins to take a visible toll on his marriage. The once warm and loving relationship between John and Sarah starts to cool, replaced by an undercurrent of tension that neither can fully explain or address. Sarah notices the changes in John first. His demeanor has shifted. He's more distant, often lost in thought. When she tries to engage him in conversation, his responses are brief and sometimes evasive. She catches him checking his phone more frequently, always angling the screen away from her view. Sarah's attempts to plan their usual date nights are met with distraction or half-hearted enthusiasm. John, for his part, finds it increasingly difficult to maintain his facade of normalcy. The constant vigilance required to keep his lies straight exhausts him. He starts avoiding intimate moments with Sarah, fearing that, in a moment of vulnerability, he might let something slip. This physical and emotional withdrawal doesn't go unnoticed by Sarah, who begins to harbor her own suspicions and insecurities. Their conversations, once flowing easily, now feel forced and superficial. John struggles to engage in discussions about their future, knowing that his secret wealth has changed everything. When Sarah brings up the topic of starting a family, a dream she's long held, John's non-committal responses lead to heated arguments. Sarah can't understand why, with their improving financial situation, John still seems reluctant to consider children. The financial improvements in their life, which should be a source of joy, instead become a point of contention. Sarah questions the sudden influx of new possessions and experiences, never fully satisfied with John's explanations. She begins to wonder if there's something John isn't telling her, a seed of doubt that grows with each passing day. Tensions reach a boiling point when Sarah discovers a receipt for an expensive watch hidden in John's jacket pocket. When confronted, John fumbles through an explanation about it being a potential gift for her upcoming birthday. The lie feels hollow to both of them, hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. Sarah doesn't push further, but the hurt and confusion in her eyes speak volumes. As the distance between them grows, both John and Sarah begin to seek solace elsewhere. John throws himself into his secret financial planning, spending long hours at work, when he's really meeting with investment advisors or researching real estate. Sarah starts spending more time with her friends from the hospital, finding comfort in their company and the distraction it provides from her troubled home life. Their friends and family start to notice the change as well. At social gatherings, the once affectionate couple now seems awkward and distant. They rarely touch or make eye contact, and their interactions are tinged with an underlying tension that's palpable to those around them. In quiet moments alone, both John and Sarah grapple with their fears and doubts. John is torn between his love for Sarah and the intoxicating freedom his secret wealth provides. He tells himself that once he figures out how to manage the money, he'll come clean and everything will be better. But deep down, he knows that every day of deception makes that scenario less likely. Sarah, meanwhile, cycles through various theories about John's behavior. Is he having an affair? Is he involved in something illegal? Is he simply falling out of love with her? The uncertainty eats away at her, affecting her work and her overall well-being. As their wedding anniversary approaches, both John and Sarah find themselves at a crossroads. The celebration that should be a reaffirmation of their love instead looms like a deadline, a moment of truth that neither feels prepared to face. The foundation of trust and honesty that once formed the bedrock of their relationship has been eroded, replaced by a chasm of secrets and unspoken grievances. Little do they know, this growing tension is merely the calm before the storm. The true test of their marriage lies just around the corner, waiting to shatter the fragile peace they've been desperately trying to maintain. As the distance between Sarah and John continues to grow, Sarah's initial concerns blossom into full-fledged suspicions. The nagging feeling that something isn't right refuses to leave her, prompting her to embark on a clandestine investigation of her own. It begins with small, almost unconscious actions. Sarah starts paying closer attention to John's schedule, noting discrepancies between what he says and what she observes. She notices how he always seems to have a reason to step out of the room when his phone rings, how he's developed a habit of clearing his browser history. One evening, while John is supposedly working late, Sarah drives by his construction site on a hunch. The site is dark and deserted. Her heart races as she realizes this is concrete proof that John has lied about his whereabouts. That night, she lies awake, her mind spinning with possibilities, each more distressing than the last. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah begins to dig deeper. She starts by meticulously combing through their financial records. The sudden influx of money that John attributed to various windfalls and side jobs doesn't add up. She creates a spreadsheet, tracking every unexplained expense and deposit, building a paper trail of John's deception. Sarah's investigation extends to John's personal belongings. When he's in the shower, she quickly rifles through his wallet, noting down credit card numbers and unfamiliar receipts. She feels a pang of guilt at this invasion of privacy, but her need for answers overrides her moral qualms. In a moment of desperation, Sarah even considers hiring a private investigator. She goes as far as to meet with one, sitting in a cafe with dark sunglasses, feeling like she stepped into a noir film. Ultimately, she decides against it, not ready to involve an outsider in her marital issues. Sarah's work at the hospital provides an unexpected avenue for her investigation. She confides in a colleague whose husband is a financial advisor. Under the guise of seeking general financial advice, Sarah probes for information about sudden windfalls and their management. The conversation leaves her with more questions than answers. but also with a growing suspicion that John's newfound wealth might be more substantial than she initially thought. As her suspicions grow, Sarah's behavior begins to change. She becomes hyper-vigilant, analyzing John's every word and action for hidden meanings. She starts creating situations to test John's honesty, asking him pointed questions about his day or suggesting spontaneous plans to see how he reacts. Each evasion, each fumbled explanation, only serves to confirm her fears. The emotional toll of her secret investigation is immense. Sarah fluctuates between feelings of betrayal, anger, and self-doubt. There are moments when she questions her own sanity, wondering if she's making mountains out of molehills. But then John will say or do something that reignites her suspicions, and the cycle begins anew. Despite her best efforts, Sarah struggles to find concrete proof of what exactly John is hiding. The lack of a smoking gun frustrates her, but also spurs her to dig deeper. She starts to wonder if John might be leading a double life. Perhaps he has another family or is involved in something illegal. As Sarah's investigation progresses, she becomes increasingly skilled at hiding her own activities. She creates a secret email account to communicate with a financial advisor, uses incognito mode for her online searches, and keeps her notes hidden in her locker at the hospital. The irony of her own secretive behavior mirroring John's is not lost on her. The climax of Sarah's investigation comes when she discovers a hidden key in John's old toolbox. Heart-pounding, she waits for John to leave for work before using the key to open a small safe hidden in their closet. What she finds inside will change everything, but whether it will bring clarity or more confusion, resolution, or further conflict remains to be seen. As Sarah stands on the precipice of uncovering the truth, she realizes that this moment will define not just her marriage, but her entire future. Whatever she discovers in that safe, there will be no going back to the blissful ignorance of before. With trembling hands, she reaches for the contents of the safe, ready to face whatever truth awaits her. On a crisp autumn morning, Sarah finds herself at the local farmer's market, seeking solace in the familiar routine of weekend shopping. Her mind, as usual, is preoccupied with thoughts of John and the growing mystery surrounding their life. As she absent-mindedly picks through a display of apples, fate intervenes in the most unexpected way. A boisterous laugh cuts through the market's buzz, a sound so joyful it momentarily pulls Sarah from her troubled thoughts. She turns to see a man she doesn't recognize, dressed in an expensive suit that seems out of place among the casual market-goers. But it's the person next to him that causes Sarah's world to tilt on its axis. John, her husband, looking more relaxed and animated than she's seen him in months. Sarah's first instinct is to approach them, but something holds her back. Instead, she ducks behind a nearby stall, her heart pounding as she strains to hear their conversation. The words that drift her way are filled with financial jargon, stocks, investments, offshore accounts, terms she's never heard John use before. As she watches, the stranger hands John a folder, which he quickly tucks into his jacket. They shake hands, the stranger clapping John on the back with the familiarity of a longtime associate. Sarah's mind races, trying to reconcile this version of John with the man she thought she knew. Just as they're about to part ways, the stranger says something that makes Sarah's blood run cold. "Well, Mr. Lottery Winner, looks like your fortune's growing nicely. Remember, mum's the word." John's nervous laughter and quick glance around the market send a chill down Sarah's spine. In that moment, all the pieces fall into place. The sudden influx of money, John's secretive behavior, the growing distance between them, it all makes a terrible kind of sense. Sarah feels as if the ground has opened up beneath her feet, her entire world crumbling around her. As John bids farewell to his companion and turns to leave, Sarah is frozen in place, unsure whether to confront him then and there, or to retreat and process this earth-shattering revelation. In her shock, she knocks over a basket of tomatoes, drawing attention to herself. John's eyes meet hers across the market, and in that instant, Sarah sees a flicker of recognition, followed by panic and then resignation. The truth hangs in the air between them, unspoken but undeniable. Time seems to stand still as husband and wife regard each other, both realizing that nothing will ever be the same again. The bustling market fades into the background, as the weight of John's deception and Sarah's discovery threatens to crush them both. Finally, it's John who breaks the tableau, taking a hesitant step toward Sarah. But she's not ready for this confrontation. Not here, not now. With tears threatening to spill, Sarah turns and flees the market, leaving behind her dropped shopping basket and the shattered remnants of her trust. As she runs, Sarah's mind is a whirlwind of emotions. Anger at John's betrayal, hurt at being kept in the dark, and a strange sense of vindication that her suspicions were not unfounded. But beneath it all is a deeper, more painful question. Where do they go from here? The chance encounter at the farmer's market has irrevocably changed the course of their lives. As Sarah makes her way home, she knows that she's heading toward a confrontation that will define not just her marriage, but her entire future. The truth is finally out, but the real challenge lies ahead, confronting John, understanding his motives, and deciding whether their love can survive this monumental breach of trust. With each step, Sarah steels herself for the conversation to come. The days of secrets and lies are over. Now it's time for the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Sarah's hands trembled as she unlocked the door to their apartment. The bustling farmer's market seemed a lifetime away now. She paced the living room, her mind replaying the scene over and over. John laughing with a stranger, the words "lottery winner" echoing in her ears. Each passing minute felt like an eternity as she waited for her husband to return. When John finally walked through the door, the look on Sarah's face stopped him cold. "Sarah, he began, but she cut him off. "Don't." Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it filled the room. "I saw you, John, at the market. I heard everything." John's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, words failing him. Sarah watched as the man she thought she knew crumbled before her eyes. "How much?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "How much did you win?" John's reply was so soft she almost missed it. 10 million. The number hung in the air between them, a tangible thing. Sarah felt her knees weaken and she sank onto the couch. $10 million, she repeated, "and you didn't tell me." What followed was hours of raw, painful conversation. John's explanations tumbled out, his initial shock, the fear of how it would change their lives, the addictive thrill of having a secret. With each word, Sarah felt another crack form in the foundation of their marriage. "I was going to tell you," John insisted, his voice pleading. "I just needed time to figure things out." "Figure what out, John?" Sarah's anger flared. "Whether you wanted to stay married to me? Whether I was worth sharing your fortune with?" As night fell, their argument ebbed and flowed. Moments of fury gave way to periods of stunned silence, only to flare up again. They revisited every major decision of the past few months, every conversation about money, every dream they'd shared about their future. Each memory was now tainted, viewed through the lens of John's deception. By dawn, they were emotionally exhausted. Sarah had cried until she had no tears left. John's voice was hoarse from explaining, apologizing, pleading. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the physical distance between them a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. As the first light of day crept through the windows, Sarah finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind all night. "What happens now?" John looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I love you, Sarah. I never stopped loving you. Can we try to fix this?" Sarah met his gaze, her heart a battlefield of love, betrayal, and uncertainty. She knew that her next words would set the course for the rest of their lives. The weight of the decision pressed down on her as she opened her mouth to respond. The days following their confrontation were a delicate dance of raw emotions and cautious steps forward. Sarah and John had decided to try and salvage their marriage, but the path ahead was fraught with challenges. They agreed to see a marriage counselor, Dr. Elena Martinez, who specialized in cases involving financial infidelity. In their first session, Dr. Martinez helped them establish ground rules for their healing process. Honesty became their mantra, with both agreeing to complete transparency in all matters, especially financial ones. John took the first step by sharing all details of the lottery win and subsequent investments. He handed over passwords to all accounts and invited Sarah to be an equal partner in managing their newfound wealth. The process was painful for John, as he had to confront the full extent of his deception, but it was a necessary part of rebuilding Sarah's trust. Sarah, for her part, struggled with conflicting emotions. While part of her was still deeply hurt by John's betrayal, another part was excited about the possibilities their new financial situation offered. She threw herself into learning about financial management, determined to be an informed partner in their wealth decisions. As weeks turned into months, they faced numerous tests of their commitment. There were setbacks, arguments that reopened old wounds, moments of doubt where Sarah questioned if she could ever fully trust John again. But there were also breakthroughs. Heartfelt conversations that lasted into the night, shared dreams of how they could use their wealth to make a difference in their community. One pivotal moment came when John suggested they use part of the money to fund a new wing at the hospital where Sarah worked. It was a gesture that showed he valued her career and wanted to support her passions. Sarah was touched by the idea, and together they worked on the proposal, their teamwork reminiscent of happier times. Slowly, the wall between them began to crumble. Date nights were reintroduced, with both making conscious efforts to reconnect emotionally. They even started to tentatively discuss the possibility of starting a family, a dream that had seemed impossible in their previous financial situation. As their first anniversary post-revelation approached, John planned a surprise vow renewal ceremony. When he presented the idea to Sarah, her eyes welled with tears, not of sadness, but of hope. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a new beginning, built on a foundation of hard-earned trust and mutual understanding. Standing hand in hand at the ceremony, surrounded by their closest friends and family, Sarah and John looked at each other with new eyes. They had weathered a storm that could have torn them apart and emerged stronger for it. As they recited their vows, both silently added a new promise: to never let secrets come between them again, and to face whatever life threw at them. Together, as the dust settled on their tumultuous year, Sarah and John found themselves standing on the threshold of a new chapter in their lives. The lottery winnings, once a source of secrecy and pain, had transformed into a tool for positive change. Their first major decision was to move out of their small apartment. They spent weekends house hunting, not for a mansion, but for a modest home with a large backyard, a place where they could start the family they had always dreamed of. They finally settled on a charming craftsman-style house in a quiet neighborhood, with plenty of room for future children and a home office for John's new venture. John, inspired by his construction background and their recent experiences, decided to start a non-profit organization focused on affordable housing. He used a significant portion of their winnings to fund the initiative, working with local authorities to renovate abandoned properties and create homes for low-income families. Sarah was by his side every step of the way, offering input on the healthcare aspects of community planning. Sarah, too, found a new purpose. She reduced her hours at the hospital to part-time and enrolled in a public health program at the local university. Her goal was to bridge the gap between healthcare and community development, inspired by the work she and John were doing. The hospital wing they had funded was nearing completion, and Sarah was set to head a new department focused on community health initiatives. Their personal life flourished alongside their professional growth. After much discussion and planning, Sarah and John decided they were ready to start a family. The day Sarah announced her pregnancy was a moment of pure joy, unmarred by the shadows of their past struggles. They spent the next months preparing for their new arrival, transforming one of the bedrooms into a nursery filled with love and anticipation. As they settled into their new roles as expectant parents and community leaders, Sarah and John often reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The lottery win, which had nearly torn them apart, had ultimately given them the means to create a life beyond their wildest dreams, not just for themselves, but for others as well. Their story began to spread, inspiring others in their community. They were invited to speak at local events, sharing their experiences of overcoming betrayal, the responsible management of sudden wealth, and the importance of giving back. Their honesty about their struggles and triumphs resonated with many, and they found themselves at the center of a growing movement of community-minded philanthropy. As Sarah's due date approached, she and John stood in the nursery, arms around each other, marveling at the path that had led them here. The room was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, symbolic of the end of one chapter and the dawn of another. "We made it," Sarah whispered, her hand resting on her swollen belly. John kissed her forehead gently. "We did. Together." As they stood there, surrounded by the evidence of their new life, the home they'd chosen together, the nursery they'd lovingly prepared, the photos of the lives they'd touched through their work, they knew that this was more than just a new beginning. It was a second chance, a redemption story, and the start of a legacy they would build together, one day at a time.